This podcast is intended for educational purposes only. For our full disclosure, please visit us at nc-midwifery.com and our podcast page.
We're back.
Yay!
And we promised you a surprise.
Yes, and we promised you more information, which we kind of
We dropped the ball.
failed to deliver to you
Life
over the
has been
summer.
insane.
Life's been crazy, but here we are. And here
Is the big announcement.
What? Is that a belly?
Peanuts. We have baby Peanuts
emphasis on the word big.
due to arrive.
End of the year ish.
Woohoo!
We don't ever give
I'm
people
super
a real
excited.
date.
No, there's no such thing as a due date anyways,
Yeah.
right?
See you then.
Hi.
There you have it.
Hello.
Announcement
The
and
clip you just
surprise.
saw, we entirely
Season
apologize. We promised you an update a long time ago.
We did.
And we're just finally getting around to it. So
Life happens.
a lot happened. And we're actually going to kind of tell a story of everything that happened in 2 podcasts. But I think today we'll start with letting Angie tell her story from the point at which you last saw Peanut in her belly.
Yes. There's still a belly, but it's not really like filled with a baby anymore. So it's a lot smaller. Yeah. It's been a year for both of us.
What happened at the end of that pregnancy?
Yeah. Well, my babies and I like to take our own sweet time,
Imagine that.
don't we?
Angie always lives on her own timeline.
I'm pretty sure that we took the cake for longest pregnancy
Yes, you
that you've
did.
done,
Yes, you
possibly.
did.
Yeah.
Although we did adjust the date several times.
Yeah, we did. And I have to say that Shannon just felt better about that. Because
But honestly, she didn't really know exactly when she got pregnant. So, and we didn't have an early ultrasound.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of leeway.
But I heard you were out for a record, personally. That's what I
I
heard.
was going for
Well,
it.
it was
Yeah.
her record. It was
Yeah.
my record too, I guess.
Yeah. So it was up. It was close to 43 weeks. But we did the biophysical profile ultrasound and
The non-stress
non-stress test. Baby was sounding great. I was listening at home because I'm
That's
supposed
what
to be.
midwives do.
I'm supposed to be qualified to do that. They say so. Yeah, baby was sounding great. So we just trucked along, and we were kind of worried that the baby was going to be like 15 pounds or something, and we
At
weren't.
least 10.
We weren't.
At least 10.
We weren't too far off, actually. Spoiler, jumping ahead, but we also took the cake for your biggest
The
baby.
poundage, yes.
Yeah,
Did.
woo! Baby was 10'9".
10-9.
Baby girl. Yes.
10-9.
Yes. So feel
22 inches.
pretty proud about that, actually.
I don't know what her head circumference was.
I don't know either.
You
I
have the
don't.
notes. You can look if you want. Just curious.
Yeah. So yeah, we're just going to tell the birth story a little bit and kind of what happened after that for both of us. So
Well, why don't you start with the fact that you were so sick of being pregnant.
Yeah.
That you were a blubbering wah-wah.
You're going to remember that part better than me.
Whiny.
Wow.
Actually, we were cracking up because I was laughing. We were just looking back at these, labor notes. Like, it's not like we sit and go over these after the fact. And the very first note is like, midwife arrives, Angie is tired and anxious. Which I don't remember, but you do have some kind of a saying about midwives make the worst, like, birthers. Laborers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What?
So-
What would that be about?
I don't know. It's almost like if you know too much. It always
Yeah.
reminds me of the story
Oh.
of the neighbor I had years ago. She was a nurse.
Uh-huh.
She'd already had one baby. Then she had a set of twins. And I'm just a mom with 2 kids. She's the nurse, right? She works with kids, pediatrics. She called me all the time and said, "Oh my gosh, what's this rash? This is what my baby's doing. Is that normal?" So I think you just completely get out of your brain. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's like me when I'm sick. I'm sick. I don't think about
Yes.
if I was my client, what would I be telling you to take?
Right.
Vitamin C, ugly pills.
Yeah.
which are immune support pills that taste horrid. But I think we just don't think that way.
Right. Yeah. So anyways,
So
it's
you
funny.
were, whiny.
So I had the
pregnant.
funny, whiny labor. Like, congratulations to me for being a goon. But, things don't always go as planned, right? And
No,
I
they
hadn't
do not.
prepared. I had envisioned this peaceful, this was going to be my most chill, in control birth. And
you had your ropes hung up.
Yes. I had used my
ropes
ropes last time. I had them all set up. I had been, stretching on them in the days leading up to this. I had this vision, and it's really not what happened. So I was, this is a little bit typical for my labors, but even though I don't start out at a high number of dilation.
Because you were 2 when we got there?
Yes.
At about,
It was a little
3
after
in the morning?
midnight. Yeah. And so they don't start out, but they do kind of go pretty fast. So, but it is a little discouraging, I think, for everyone involved when the midwife shows up and the mom is already
dying,
moaning and being whiny.
They're on top of each other.
And then it's 2 centimeters, and you're uh-oh, this is gonna be a little scary. And so
but you did have prodromal labor. You did have putsy labor for a long time, and come to find out later, she had her little arm up, and that always makes putsy labor for days.
Yeah. So anyways,
Maybe she had a question. She had her arm up.
Yeah, can I come out now?
yes, hello. So I had envisioned this, real zen labor that I was going to have. And,
Good for you.
It's the middle of the night, and I couldn't help myself. I was already yelling almost, and just really.
You acted like someone in transition when I got there.
Yes,
you did.
I was hurting.
So
I couldn't believe here I am. I'm the midwife. I've been to 100 births, and I'm thinking, I might not make it. I might not make it if I'm in this much pain. Something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong.
Right.
But I woke my oldest daughter up as I'm out moaning in the hallway next to her room. And so she gets up at 2:30 in the morning or something.
Super excited.
Because, she wanted to be a part of it. The kids were all planning to be there.
They're psyched, ready to go.
But I felt bad because I was I'm going to scare her. I just was making
fine.
more noise than I typically do at that point. But I was in a lot of pain, and I felt like my intestine was going to explode.
Your intestine?
No, serious. This side pain that was not normal labor pain. And with a contraction, I honestly thought.
Was it your round ligament?
No, I have no idea. I honestly thought my intestine's going to explode and I'm going to die in pain, and they're going to think I'm just having a painful labor, and they're not going to know, and I'm just going to die. I'm just going to die because my intestine exploded and nobody knew. So that's
Angie, your imagination.
That's kind of where I was at. I was being pretty wimpy, and my husband kept wanting to leave, to go I don't know, breathe or take a drink or something. I had a death grip on his hands. I was like, no, you
You're
can't
not
leave. You
leaving
can't
me.
leave.
You
You can't
probably
leave.
had to pee for 3 hours straight.
That's right. Anyways, but they were really coming right on top of each other, which is also very untypical for me. And I was like, why? Why are they not stopping?
Did you do anything that you didn't tell me about as far as take castor oil?
No, I would not do that. I wouldn't do that.
Wow.
No
True
way.
confessions.
No way. No.
Okay.
All natural all the way. And so I just was astounded that it came like a freight train, and it was fast. And anyways, in fact,
you went from 2 centimeters to baby out though in just a few, 3 hours?
Less than 6 hours. Yeah, it was 5 hours. So it did go pretty fast. But no, we just looked at the charts. It was way faster than that.
No, you were in active labor at 3:30 and she was out at 6:45.
Okay,
so
yeah.
3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yes. So it was fast, which is why it was a little fast and furious. But I was one of those really naughty laboring moms that I wouldn't let anyone listen to the baby. I don't know if you remember that, but there was a long stretch of time where I was like, nope, leave me alone. Nope, I'm not ready.
We did it anyways, if you remember.
Well, because Johnny was in the way. And I was like, he can't move. No, like, no one's
well,
listening.
we just pulled the midwife Gumby move and
So-
figure out a way to
the
get in
baby's
there.
fine, leave me
So-
alone.
Yeah,
I know.
she did. She said that. The
I've
baby's
heard
fine.
that. I've heard that guys can get stretch marks. Is this why? When you hang on to them that tight, they end up with stretch marks when the birth is over.
He was being kind of a pill
You
too,
were
because
kind
he
of a
was
pain.
he was like wanting to. He was like, Angie, they need to listen to the baby. You need to let them do their job. And I was like, you can't talk to me like that. it was just. It was
we
a
need
scene.
a camera. We needed a camera in this birth. That would have been so classic, just to show a clip.
It was a scene. Anyways, finally,
Angie.
I couldn't relax, and Shannon was like, "You have got to relax," and I was like, "I can't. It's like the it's not going away."
Which
like,
is a really stupid thing, in all honesty, to say to a laboring woman. Relax.
I was like, I'm trying. I can't. Like I had a
They
new
were on top of each
compassion
other.
for people like in that state, because you want so bad to make it happen. You're like, you just must relax. And I was like,
And you can't.
I'm trying everything. I can't do it. So finally they were like, you have to get in the tub. And I was in a groove and I was like, no, I don't want to get, but nothing was working. So they were like, you have to get in the tub. So finally they got me in the birth tub and Shannon was like, relax, you have to relax. And it wasn't working.
Famous last
Okay,
words.
well, finally, interestingly enough, we did a podcast, check it out, on chirodontics, but I was determined to try my mouthpiece
that's right.
for this
That's
labor.
right.
That's right.
And so, here I am leaning over the birth
Now,
tub.
wait. Explain to them what this mouthpiece is and why it's supposed to help in labor. real
Okay,
quick.
so check out the podcast, but it is a custom fitted mouthpiece. This looks kind of like a mouth guard. And it, once you put it in, it realigns your body so it's in alignment. It sets your jaw where it naturally wants to be.
So that your neck is aligned,
Your
so that
neck
your
and
spine is
everything
aligned.
on down.
the
And
pelvis.
so, like, they use it in sports, and like you can do a stretch, like a toe touch, say, without it, and then slip it in, and then do it again, and you immediately gain a couple inches. Like, that's just how
That's so
quickly it
incredible
works.
because when you clench your teeth, you can feel the stress goes, from your mouth down.
Yes.
So I buy it
Yes.
when we did that podcast
Yep.
because he said clench your teeth. I think he did at one point, and I
Uh-huh.
could feel the stress.
Yeah,
So-
it just radiates down.
Yeah.
And so, and you think about in labor, that's kind of your tendency is like,
Right,
you
right.
do this thing.
Well, and
so,
then we finally remembered.
yeah, I didn't
tell
want
you,
to put it in.
Are you
like,
wearing your mouth guard? You wanted to wear your mouth guard.
yeah, and I made sure, I was like, you guys, I'm not going to want to do it, and you have to make me. And sure enough, in the throes of labor, I did not want to put that dumb thing in my mouth. And they made me. Well, crazily enough, like looking back on it,
night and day.
it switched. It turned to switch. Like I calmed down. Things settled down in between contractions. I was able to finally get a little bit of a break.
Did we make a note of what time?
I
Was it right when you got in the pool? Let me see the notes.
I think we did make a note because
I'm curious.
you were pretty astounded.
Yeah,
I
was
couldn't
like,
remember at the
wow.
time, like it didn't register that that's what happened. But looking back, everyone agreed that that was a turning point, which is crazy. So if you are desperate for something to help your labor, check out the chirodontics episode.
It was
and,
an hour before she was out.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. So it really
Oh,
changed the scene.
say it really again.
It
Sorry.
really changed the scene. Yeah, so got into a little bit of a better rhythm. We never got the lights turned down and the candles lit. It was like things were just happening. My friend arrived. We didn't
Your
think my
mom
mom was going to make
Barely
it.
made it.
She barely made it. She walked in. But at this point, all the kids were awake. It was really cute because they all ended up kind of having a job. My oldest was pouring water on my back. My son was actually holding the flashlight.
Yep.
And so they all kind of had a little job, which was really neat. I was glad because they really wanted to be a part of
Did you
it.
get many pictures?
We did. Yeah, we did get
I
some.
guess I haven't seen them.
They're on phones or something. I'll have to send some to you. Anyways, all in all, baby came out great. without a
Yeah, the
hitch.
delivery was awesome. Hardly
Delivery
any
went well.
bleeding, even though Angie thought she was going to bleed to death. Am I bleeding? I'm bleeding too much. Am I bleeding?
Midwives show up
when
again.
Yeah,
you
you
are
know
a
too much.
midwife. Yes.
Yep.
But yeah, the birth went great for 10 pounds, 9 ounces. So
22 inches.
I feel pretty boss about that,
Yeah.
you know, praise God that went well. And, you know, but she came out and, you know, I flip around and
She
grab
had
the
her-
baby, and my first thought was, she looks funny. Like, great thing for a parent to think, right? But in the back of my foggy labor brain, I was like, oh, she looks funny. But
Like
Yeah.
funny Johnny,
just
funny
funny.
Angie.
Like they just like, you know, I've been to 100 births now. Babies
Like,
come out.
Sometimes they look squishy.
They
and
look funny sometimes.
distorted.
Yeah. And I just thought, okay, she needs a little time. But, and it was a girl, which we all thought it was a boy.
I didn't.
Really, I was convinced. I'm always wrong. Like, I'm always
No,
convinced it's the
I knew,
opposite.
I knew it was a girl.
I remember this
Baby
conversation that we
Peanut.
had. Yeah.
Baby Peanut. Oh, and
Baby
I will
Peanut.
say, guys, just a little disclaimer here. For security reasons, we're not going to say baby's name. We're going to say Baby Peanut.
Baby Peanut.
So, but she actually has a really cool name. Like, the story to her name. It was just really providential the way it worked out. So,
and
if-
she was not a peanut.
oh no, she was
was a moose.
like what, a Brazil nut?
What? Peanuts aren't getting a bad rap here now. Not all peanuts
No,
are
they're just
small.
little
But
bitty.
you think of something peanut as
I
little.
know.
Okay. Anyways, so she was, you know, purple-ish. One really cool thing, though, actually is, you know, we were going to need to give her some breaths. And I actually gave her her first breaths.
Mhm.
And this is the first baby that, you know, as a midwife, that I gave breaths without the mouthpiece, like
The bag.
mouth to mouth.
The bag and mouse.
And it was actually, even though it was like, okay, my baby needs breaths, but it was cool moment because
Mhm.
I had, you know, such a good handle on her, being the one that was in the tub, and I could totally feel her lungs expand. And I just felt like I knew exactly how much pressure to give. And it was just a really cool
That's cool.
moment of
Mhm.
like, oh, I get to practice this and I get to feel it. And it was like, I got to give my baby her first breaths, which was
It's
pretty
very cool.
very cool. So help open up her lungs, but she did need some more work. So
Mhm.
this was kind of the point where things started to take an unexpected turn.
Mhm.
And, you know, of course, Shannon and Sierra were totally on top of it. I was pretty hilarious, actually. Like, I was,
She was so out of it.
out
She was
of it.
like labor drunk.
Labor land. And I am glad that I was not in charge of my own birth because it would
But I
not
gotta
have
tell
been
you,
a good scene.
it almost feels like you're in charge of your own birth when you're doing a birth for someone you're so close to.
I can imagine that being hard,
Yeah.
So it was hard.
but she
Yeah.
did fantastic.
And I think that's kind of the story, part of the story that we you know we've been talking about, is that when you're that connected, right? The spouse, Johnny.
And I'm gonna cry. So
No.
just ignore me.
So that, I think that's one of the most powerful parts of your story, is the fact that you guys got to experience, you know, this whole thing together. And we podcast and stuff together, and you guys have worked together, but that's not the first time you've experienced that together, but
That's
after post podcast. So
Yeah, that's real life, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and you know, the truth is, it really was heavier for Shannon because
You were oblivious.
She knew what was going on, and I was oblivious. I
You were
really was out of it.
oblivious.
So my son got to cut the cord, but then they needed to take her over to the bed to really do some more work on her, to get some oxygen going, get her lungs opened up.
Mhm.
And so Shannon and Sierra were working on the baby, and this is normal. Like we've talked about in podcasts. We
Yeah,
tell
it's
our
not
clients,
unusual to help baby open
this
their
is
lungs.
this is not super unusual. So I was totally not worried at this point. Just, okay, they're working on her. I'm gonna do my thing, get, hit some equilibrium here. So I was just doing my thing, and but they kept working on her and kept working on her. And I could see my oldest daughter was over there sitting next to her on the bed, and she was worried.
She was getting upset.
She was getting worried because, this was the thing. Like, we had prepped these kids for this home birth. They were beyond excited. And one of the very best things about a home birth that I love is that uninterrupted contact with your baby. Like, mom and baby are together. No one else is taking your baby. Like, you're just, and you get to go into bed and snuggle, and the family gets to snuggle.
And my thought is everything Angie wanted is going to pot right now. I've taken her baby away from her, cut the cord probably sooner than she would ever want. I'm having to work on her baby. Her kids are getting stressed instead of having this great experience.
I'm so sorry. It really was hard.
But isn't it cool that in that environment, the kids get to be a part of it? They get to be around there. I'm thinking back, Shannon, you and I, until Bryson was born, I don't think that the kids got to be around the birth. So that's incredible. I didn't think about that. I just pictured them all around you in that same room. That would only happen in a home birth, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I am beyond grateful that we got to do that with them.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't end up the way we had planned, it is still so precious. And the birth itself was beautiful.
It was a great birth.
It was a great birth, yeah. So we got me out of the tub and getting me situated. And Shannon said, Angie, I know you're not going to want to hear this, but I think she needs to go in.
Wow.
Meaning transfer to the hospital.
Which was probably one of the hardest things I've ever said to you.
But there's so much comedy in the middle of this because, again,
I'm glad you think so.
I was so out of it. I said to her, no, baby's fine. Just let her come nurse. She'll turn around. She'll be fine. And I'm sure it just makes me laugh looking back on it from the midwife perspective because you guys were probably like, okay, Ange, whatever you say.
Yep.
And so, but they just kept working on her, and then Shannon, a couple minutes later.
Mind you, this sounds like a hour-long ordeal. This is just chop.
This was
this is minutes.
Like 15 minutes at tops, right? I mean, it wasn't that long. Right. And so then she said to me again, no, Angie, she needs to go in. And
can I just say this?
Yeah.
That's what makes me respect you guys so much, because we've talked about transports before, right? And here you are, you have someone you're super close to, her vision for the birth, and yet you still have the instincts to know that as hard as that is, this needs to happen. And as we'll hear the story, this is a very important decision. And I think that's really cool that you did what you needed to do in that moment, because that makes home birth safe.
It's phenomenal. I mean, honestly, it was the absolute best of both worlds because we got the birth that we wanted. And we also had the midwife that knew enough to get the baby to the hospital. And so we had a safe home birth and a safe transfer, but we still got the home birth experience, which
a rock star
I
midwife.
Feel like you provided that for us.
Oh, but
we
I felt
couldn't
like
have done that any
ripping
other way.
All your dreams away.
Well, you didn't. It wasn't your... Shannon, you did not grow that baby or create that baby or plan that baby.
You don't know how stubborn you are, and to have to be the one to tell you that it wasn't going to happen the way you wanted it to was not an easy feat.
No, it's awful. I'm so sorry. I mean, I don't
love
envy
that you're
that
laughing and I'm crying.
I don't
Why?
envy that position for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think that's, again, guys, what makes your relationship unique, and why it's so fun to have it on the podcast is because,
this will become known as the podcast of the blubbering midwife.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so they made the call, and the ambulance was on the way, and it really was pretty surreal at that point. I mean, I was still, in the very fresh moments of recovering.
I still thought you were going to bleed to death.
Yes, I was concerned. I was like, it's
don't
funny
know
because
why.
they ended up giving me a shot of Pitocin just to shut me up.
Pretty much.
Because every 2 minutes I was like, am I bleeding? Am I okay? I think I'm bleeding too much. How's it looking? I was just like, what a nut.
Never deliver a midwife.
What a nut. So, yeah, but that was pretty surreal at that point because it was completely out of my hands. And they did a phenomenal job wrapping her up, getting her nice and toasty because this is January.
Right.
This is
End of January.
End of January.
Cold,
It was
cold.
very cold. Oxygen on baby to transport.
Oh, yeah. We had her wrapped in warm blankets with a chucks around her. I mean, it was perfect transport scenario. And then
you should tell this part because I wasn't there.
So just in context, how many months ago was that from right now, this podcast, this birth?
14 months ago.
Wow, it's been that long. It's just amazing to me.
It
Wow.
really
Lots
is.
happened.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
So they get there, and I'm amazed. This big, burly guy walks in, and he says, "Well, that baby looks fine to me." And I was like, "Oh, wow, here we go." So we hand her over to them because I'm taking care of Angie, and we decided that her mom and Sierra would go to the hospital. Sierra would transfer the information of what happened, and her mom would be there for support. I would stay with Angie so she didn't bleed to death.
Because I was close, right?
Yeah, because honestly, she would have been perfectly safe with the birth assistant and the student and blah, blah, blah. But so we hand the baby to him. And I don't know if they don't know what to do with tiny babies that little or what, but they're like not keeping her wrapped. She's losing heat. Her color's getting crummy again because they're just not, I don't know. And then I find out later, a few minutes later, that they're trying to stuff her into a car seat to transport her, which, yes, safety-wise, that would make sense. But you've got this baby that's already having a hard time getting enough oxygen, and you get them curled up in a car seat with their windpipe smashed, and it just didn't make any sense. So we've got grandma, telling us what's going on the way, and Sierra's texting and letting us know what's happening. And did Johnny stay with you, right? You
He
wanted
stayed
him
with
to
me.
stay
I
with
I also wanted him to stay with me
you in case you
in
bled
case
to
I
death.
bled to death.
Right.
No, I mean,
Well, he needed to kind of calm the kids and tell them it was fine.
he needed to be there for support for us. And the thing that was ringing in my head, which we say a zillion times over, is usually when there's a problem with baby, there's a problem with mom. It happens simultaneously. And so I'm thinking in my head, I am going to bleed to death. And so Johnny needs to be here.
Yeah.
Wow.
But,
well, and honestly, this would be a great place to stop and make them wait till part 2 to hear what happened.
that's true.
What?
Yeah.
That's
I have
true.
to wait because I haven't heard the story.
I think we need to stop right here with this podcast and make them
you're
watch
right.
part 2.
I think you're right.
Sorry, guys.
100%.
Oh my
So-
gosh. Well,
You're
See you
going to have
later.
to tune in, please.
Tune in to part 2 coming soon.
this podcast is intended for educational purposes only. For our full disclosure, please visit us at nc-midwifery.com and our podcast page.